All right, guys, this is Norvell Central coming back at you with another YouTube video. I really appreciate all the love and support, but let's go ahead and get straight into the good news today as Terrence Knight actually landed another defensive lineman, Ernest Rankings, and he is a guy that Florida State really likes out of Georgia, Decatur, Georgia to be exact. Florida State's done a really good job with defensive line recruiting. It's been something I've really been impressed with. I know a lot of fans on social media were talking about how Coach Knight couldn't recruit this and couldn't recruit that, and he just isn't that great. And everybody was kind of taking him for a back seat at times. Tico Critidon, as well as like Woodley Cadu, and also James Carrington Jr. as well. Those are three other defensive linemen that he's got in this class. And I really do think that he can be able to get that fifth guy in there. But just overall, though, I think Florida State's done a good job in being able to get more in that. And I really do think that Florida State can be able to get another guy in this class. Granted, the one thing I do worry about with this class is trying to get a true national defensive end slash pass rusher in this class. Because I do think the four guys that they have are bigger bodies. They can play interior. They can play a little bit of defensive end as well. You like to be a little bit more versatile in Tony White's defense that he has, the 3-3-5 defensive multiple scheme. But the biggest concern that I have is some of those bigger guys. They're like 280, 260, 270, even 300 pounds for Critidon as well. I just want to see what Florida State does in some of those recruiting instances there. I do think Knighton is a good recruiter, but I think he's kind of struck out on a couple of pass rushers that you probably didn't want to strike out on. Like a Trenton Henderson, for example, 5-star out of Pensacola, Florida. He should have been in the top three there, and we'll kind of see how that recruitment goes. If he still takes his visit to the Alabama game or if he kind of takes it off, we'll see in that regard. But overall, the only really realistical get that I think he can be able to get so far in terms of uncommitted guys is probably just Chris Addison. I do think he is a good prospect, but he is a high 3-star, and you know how fans are going to talk about it's just a 3-star. You know, it's not much of anything. But I will say that you have to give credit where credit is due at this point because Rankings is a top 125 prospect in the country. Georgia was after him for a while. He even had a crystal ball prediction in favor of Georgia, but unfortunately, he was only able to go between Auburn and Florida State basically at that point because those are the only two schools that he really had official visits for. The biggest thing that I wonder in this recruiting cycle is why does Mike Norvell have such a big vendetta against a Hugh Freeze? I don't know what Hugh Freeze has done to him recently, but man, you look at guys like Devin Carter, who was committed to Florida State at one time. He flipped over to Auburn, and now he flipped back over to Florida State again. And then you had Rankins as well, who is a prospect that Mike Norvell really likes, and he was involved with Auburn, and there was a couple of connections there. And then you turn over to even like last year in the 25 recruiting cycle. I think this was another prospect there that you had Shamar No, who was actually a cornerback prospect that Florida State might actually get some playing time this year out of him for the young freshman. Even in Xavier Tiller, who I know was considering Alabama and Auburn, I think Florida State was pushing the most in that recruitment. But just overall, I don't know what he did to Auburn in terms of that, and I don't know why he's kind of wanting to get so much into the front door with that. But man, it's exciting to see him getting those talented prospects. We got some other guys coming up in Chauncey Kennon, who I hope that Florida State's able to land. You got Rodney Colton Jr., who's another guy, DK Portpa, as well as a Landon Myrie as well, who I really think those four prospects are equally important to what Florida State brings to the table in July, as well as Chris Addison. I think you got to be able to get another pass rusher in this class. Overall, though, 21 commitments. You're in the top 10 in recruiting. I don't want to say it's like a 21 situation where you had the 22 class all great and dandy and everything, and then you end up losing to Jacksonville State, and you saw everything that happened in that recruiting class. But I just want to see what Florida State does in terms of that, how they are able to hang on, what they're going to be able to do this season. Because even in Auburn, for example, they've recruited at a very high level, and guess what? They've had 5 straight losing seasons. So you really have to figure out what you're going to be able to get go good for. And the new coaching staff has got to continue to recruit those guys all the way to the end of signing day. And even after signing day, you have to still recruit those guys. I hope with the new house settlement, they're able to kind of strike a little bit more deals where kids can kind of stay put instead of transferring from school to school to school to school. Obviously, I want to promote those movements if it's something in the future that benefits them in total. But just overall, it's just a lot of movement in college football right now, and it's kind of a crazy world out there. I hope each and every one of you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the recruiting video that I put out there, and I hope that we have more recruiting news coming up. And as always, go Noles.